Hello. Stop. Okay, let's take that again.
I'm sorry.
Hello, welcome back to Amateur Podcast. I'm your host Attia, and with me here is
Nico. I'm Nico.
So Nico, it has been a while since we've been here, so a little bit of update. Gwyneth Paltrow won her case, and she gave us some really cool villainous moments. Do you want to talk about the final verdict a little bit?
My favorite moment, and I think the best moment out of the whole trial, is the quintessential white woman FU, which was, I wish you well.
Yeah, that was a very memeable, and I think she did enough. Like, she gave us a few cool outfits. She gave us a little bit of nitbits of sound bites, and the final, I wish you well.
Yeah.
I think it was perfect. It was not too long, not too short. It was the right amount. We needed that. I really appreciate her for that, despite all the bone broth stuff.
But I think what worked in her favor was that she was just Gwyneth. Like,
she's being herself.
She's just being herself.
She's like, my favorite quote was, it cost me half a day of skiing.
That's the best one.
I lost half a day of skiing.
It was great. Thank you, Gwyneth.
Okay, we're going to move on to our episode today. What is the best concert you have ever been to?
That's easy. It was before the pandemic, it was like 2019, I think, or 2018. I can't remember. But Omer had bought tickets for my birthday present to go see Beyonce and Jay-Z on The Run Part 2. Yeah.
Wait, you went to that?
I went to that in Houston. It was loud. It was so loud. It was awesome.
Was it everything you've ever dreamed of?
Yes.
And she's just like an amazing singer, vocalist, dancer.
I mean, I had never been to a concert like that. Like, my first concert was like Backstreet Boys in the 90s. I was in kindergarten and I went with my mom and my cousin. Yeah.
Oh my God.
But then like all the other concerts I went to were like, like Austin City Limits, like smaller venues. So I hadn't been to a stadium concert like that. Ever? Well, unless you count Backstreet Boys.
Oh, okay. But you were little, so it didn't count.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So it was quite the spectacle. I couldn't
Were you
believe
overwhelmed by the...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was amazing.
Okay, so I just saw Taylor Swift in the Era store. I know everybody's talking about it, and that's basically our topic today. It was... Honestly, I've been to a lot of concerts, and it's crazy that this is a stadium concert, and I felt this way about it. I think she makes you feel like it's just you and her, and it's like personal and spectacular at the same time, which is really hard to give that kind of a show. And it was just like, it's a 3-hour long show, no breaks, without her openers. Her openers start at 6. She starts at 8. 44 songs, no breaks.
I thought when you said the 3 hours,
no,
that it included
it's
her
Taylor
openers.
performing for 3 hours straight.
Man.
It's insane. It's like dance numbers, piano ballads, guitar songs. There are things that are like acted out or like scenery stuff, and like the stage changes to her eras. We go from Fearless to Speak Now or whatever, and the whole like stage changes. For Folklore, there were like trees coming out of the stage. It was just
that's
oh my
wild.
God, yeah. It was just spectacular.
Wow.
And I generally don't understand how one person can physically do that. Dude, there's one point where she literally nosedives inside the stage.
I saw a clip of that.
Like, how is she doing all of this? And maybe she got a break like between set changes and costume changes, which is like 1 to 3 minutes top. Just getting water and maybe retouching her makeup. But like,
that's not really a break.
Yeah, but she's like on her feet the whole time in like these like high heel boots, and it's just just even talking about it, it's giving me chills because I'm a big Swiftie, and I just feel like this is my first Taylor concert. Okay, and
it's your first one.
Yeah, and I've been a Taylor Swift fan since I was like 9 years old, since our song, her debut album called Taylor Swift. So I've been through all of her era. So it's just like also her like her music like is also different from each other, the genre. So like just seeing them all in one concert just felt so like crazy. I was like, oh my God. I was like screaming, and then I lost my voice for like a week. That's why we had to delay our podcast, because I didn't have my voice, because I told myself, I was like, I'm not gonna like scream, right? And then by song 2, and I was like, ah! And then by song 3, I was like bawling my eyes out, and I kept crying until I got dehydrated, and then I couldn't cry anymore because I was dehydrated.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I did not react that way to the Beyonce and Jay-Z concert. Like, and I'm a big Beyonce fan, but did not have that kind of spiritual experience.
I did, okay. But like, I just feel like I very closely follow Taylor Swift. Like, you know, it's just like, she's my go-to artist for like everything. Like, you know, I know every single song of hers, like every single one.
Can you guess my go-to artist?
Beyonce.
No.
Oh, huh? Shakira. Oh my God, please. We're not going to bring up Okay, this is Nico's shtick. She wants to bring up Shakira every single episode somehow, even though it has nothing to do with Shakira. Oh my God.
But
okay.
I just did it.
There you go.
There, it's done.
10 points for Gryffindor. I didn't even see that one coming, because I thought myself, I was like, I'm going to know when she's going to bring up Shakira, but then you did it and I didn't see it coming.
This is going to be fun. Well, so I have a confession.
Okay.
You know, I'm not a big Swiftie fan.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Do you like John Mayer?
No.
Okay, then we're fine.
Your Body's a Wonderland is a really good song.
Ew,
though.
it was so gross when he was like singing that to Taylor when she was like 18 years old on tour. Ugh.
That's
Okay.
gross. Yeah.
Okay, moving on. So what happened, like, you know, this big Eras tour happens. It opens in Glendale, Arizona. She broke the record for the most attended female concert of all time, day 1.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I think Beyonce might break it when she goes on
The Renaissance?
Yeah, I think when Beyonce goes on Renaissance, she's gonna break Taylor's record. But that's my assumption. Right now, Taylor is the number 1. Mm-hmm. Then she recently performed in Texas in Arlington the 3 days for the weekend, and then people were like, "Oh, she has a 10-day break. We're not gonna hear about Taylor Swift for a while." But little do we know, the headlines are just like only talking about her, because we find out that she and Joe Alwyn, her longtime boyfriend of 6 years, have broken up, and people are just hysterical a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like people are not believing the news and saying that this is not real. I'm not going to believe it unless Taylor comes and says it herself. And I mean, to those people, do we expect her to send us a handwritten letter? I think this is the best as it gets, right? Like, her publicist goes to Entertainment Tonight and People.com and says, hey, they're not together. It's just chaotic because of that. And then she was also spotted in Liverpool shooting a music video at 3 a.m. right after performing in Texas. And then she suddenly appears in New York City doing a pap walk. It's like post-breakup pap walk, right? Like,
right.
And we never see Taylor Swift on the street. She knows how to hide. And I mean, the rumor has it that she hides in suitcases, which a little bit was proven right when we found that she was actually hiding in the crate outside when she was getting out of like the stage and the Eras tour.
Like I said, I'm not a big Taylor Swift fan, but I actually thought, that's someone who's like on the outside looking in, just seeing all the like headlines. All of her relationships have felt really messy. You know, she's like constantly talking about them, and then her songs too, like she puts Easter eggs and she's so cryptic, and people like basically like either her fans are like primed to be conspiracy theorists, or she like encourages it with the cryptic messages and the Easter eggs and whatever. But I think it's like, I actually thought this was one of her healthier relationships because I never heard anything about it. Like, I didn't hear anything about it at all. They were really quiet, low key, and they were together for a long time. They were together
for almost 7 years.
Yeah, like Omer and I have been together for 7 years.
The reason people are expecting, they're like, oh, they're not believing this news, is because when Taylor was literally a teenager and in her early 20s, she, like most regular people, was not good at relationships, and it was messy. When she was 19, she went on the Ellen show and blasted Joe Jonas, and they're best friends now, so it doesn't. So people are expecting this kind of reaction out of her when she was like 19 or in her early 20s, and she's a grown woman now, and she's
like 10 years later.
Yeah, she's like 33 years old, and they're not getting that reaction out of her. She's just like, oh, this is an amicable breakup. we separated ways, we're good friends, and people are just like, oh, has to be fake news, this has to be a lie.
I sent you those threads on Reddit, which I need to get off of
I'm honestly
Reddit.
kind of surprised how fast people like turned against Joe Alwyn, like
I'm not.
in one day.
I'm not.
Okay, I told you I wasn't gonna bring this up, but I'm gonna bring it up. Like, there's like different sides of Taylor Swift fandom, right?
Oh,
There's
God.
like a lot of people like really, really, really loved Taylor and Joe together, and I mean, I don't mind them together. Like, they're fine.
But I mean, I don't get that.
Yeah.
Kinda like parasocial.
Yeah, parasocial, right?
Yeah.
I don't have like anything against him or anything, but I'm not like obsessed with him in any certain way. I'm like, he's obviously good for her, I guess, if she loves him, but I like her and her art, right? But there are people just really obsessed with their relationship, and now they're just having kind of like a social media mental breakdown where
Yeah.
they're like going to her old house in New York City in Cornelia Street and like leaving flowers in front of the apartment.
That's excessive.
And
That is excessive.
That is a little bit stalking.
Oh my God.
I don't think she wants you to go in front of her old house and put flowers in there for a relationship that she obviously
Good
initiated a breakup from, which of course, like the press release it's kind of an exclusive press release, but it feels like a publicist saying it, that Taylor wanted to expand her career and Joe was like, wanted a more low-key life, so they separated ways.
Which I don't blame him seeing
Yeah.
like that her fans are leaving flowers at
Yeah.
her old residence.
But when they started dating, she was, that whole Kanye and her beef had started, and she had gone into this hiatus for 2 years.
That's
where,
when
like,
Kim dropped
yeah.
the video.
Yeah. So she went on a hiatus for 2 years, and they were like having a relationship, very private. She was not seen for like months, right? And nobody knew anything about her relationships. And then Reputation, she had a comeback, but it still wasn't as big as this. And then the pandemic hit, and then they were like quarantined with each other, so they've been living in this bubble, and I think this might be the first time he's really firsthand experiencing the Taylor Swift craze and
Yeah.
what her life actually is, and who the Taylor Swift brand actually is, and maybe he wasn't on board with that and he didn't want that life, and maybe he also wants to build his own brand and be like Joe Alwyn the actor.
I was talking to my hairdresser and friend Casey. Shout out to Casey. But she said Taylor needs a Carl Dean, Dolly Parton's husband, someone who just kind of like steps back and like,
Yes, I think
know?
so. I think, okay, I like Joe Alwyn because to me, he was that person. Because I always saw him like as the person that just took a step back and let Taylor just be like, this super mega pop star. And we didn't know, like, I mean, he's been in a few movies, but we can all agree that he's not like an Oscar winning actor that
Not
everybody's
yet. I think he's getting there because
He
he's
might,
been in
right.
really
Yeah.
with really like big actors.
But in comparison, in that
Yeah.
relationship,
Yeah.
like she's obviously way more successful. So to me, I was like, okay, so she found someone that could be that stable person for her, of like, but I think maybe his own ambition of like wanting more for himself might have, challenged that a little bit, and that not working out. But I think everybody like kind of needs that. Everybody who's in that stature needs to be with somebody who's not as famous.
It's also kind of like you see this in the real world play out, right? Like someone with a really strong personality is
Yeah.
with someone who's very mellow and very like low key, and it's a
Yeah.
good balance. But I think it's very speculative. I think a part of it is just like, I'll tell you, like when you get to your early 30s and they've been together, literally, I think they got together when she was like probably like 26.
Yeah.
Right. So in your mid 20s, you're still figuring out your life. And then when you get to your early 30s, you kind of like start to key in on like what you want. And so some people have been speculating like, oh, well, he wanted kids and she didn't, or vice versa. Like she wanted to get married and he didn't. And I don't think it's it. I think you just kind of like realize like, this is the kind of lifestyle that I want. And, when you get to like really like people I don't think have a understanding of like what a good relationship and marriage is. I'll throw in my 2 cents, but it's not like you need to make me happy.
Yeah.
Right? It's like we need to have similar life goals. We need to like, this is a partnership. I'm your companion for the rest of your life. And so can I withstand
Yeah.
the life that you're building, and can you withstand the life that I'm building? Right? And so I think it just came down to like this just isn't gonna work, because they just wanted different things probably, and the relationship had run its course. Like they reached like a fork in the road.
Yeah.
You know, and they weren't really, maybe they just couldn't or weren't willing to travel on the same one, right? So then they split.
The timing of the announcement is very interesting.
And that's Taylor being really good at PR.
Yeah. Tree Payne, that's her publicist. I hope she gets paid really well, because she's really good at what she does. So with the Eras tour, we've seen like her break a lot of records in the past, but I just feel like this feels really different. And it's almost like she has all these new fans because of folklore. She keeps growing, and I wonder, and I mean, Arlington changed a whole street to her name.
What?
Yes. Glendale, I think they declared a Taylor Swift Day, and then Arlington were like, we're going to change a street name to Taylor Swift Way, and then we're going to give her the key to the city.
Oh my God.
And now she's going to Tampa, and Tampa is like, they're like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make Taylor Swift mayor for a day.
Oh my gosh.
So
that's wild.
That's crazy. Like, I'm just saying, it's crazy to think that this one person has so much power. I mean, personally, I'm like, I hope she gets canceled so I can buy cheaper tickets, but
it's not selfish at all.
Not to cause her harm, but like, God, those tickets are expensive.
I can imagine.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know how I feel about parasocial relationships with celebrities. Like, I do like follow her closely, and I love everything she does, and I think like you said, like all the cryptic stuff, it kind of does like make you follow her a lot. You know, when she does the things that are intentional. So I do follow that, but some people I think genuinely believe that they have a say in her relationships.
You know, when you think about the career she's had, she started as like a teenager. We're basically the same age, and when she came out with her album, what was it called?
Taylor Swift, debut.
Okay. So that's the first album that came out. This is like how little I know.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, this is just some like corny country singer. I'm not listening to this.
I have some goss for you about that.
About,
do you know her accent was fake?
What? See, and this is what I'm getting at. Okay, this is what I'm gonna get at.
No. I like love this. I found this out on TikTok. Okay, they were
is this real?
This is actually real, because like in her town they did like a real search, like people in her high school, like, you know, so the town, she's not from Nashville, that's where her brand was. So like she was like, okay, I want to be a country singer, but people in her town don't have a country accent, and she was like kind of low-key bullied for it, and then it became the narrative, oh, Taylor was like bullied in high school, which I'm sure there was jealousy and everything, but also, I mean, if you're faking a country accent when you don't have one, I think I can see why people were just a little bit like snobby about it. But she had to do what she had to do to, like, you know, it worked, whatever. But I didn't know her country accent was fake. She was like faking it.
That's wild. I had no idea. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And you're sure this is real?
Yes.
Because when you say I saw this on TikTok, my first thought is this is not real.
If someone can confirm that it's not real, you can go on our Instagram and send us hate comments.
So this is what I'm getting at. Basically, like, I thought, she's a corny country singer, blah, 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 blah. And I wasn't interested in her music. But I have a theory that part of the reason why of her longevity and why she generates new fans is because there's a Taylor Swift song for everybody.
Yes.
There is one for everybody.
Okay, let's play a game. Give me a situation and I'll tell you if there's a Taylor Swift song for it.
Oh, okay. All right. That's
a good one.
Okay, that's good. Let me think. Best friend backstabs you.
Breathe, Bad Blood, Closure. There's multiple.
Let me think of another one.
Breathe is not really backstabbing. It's more like you miss the ex-best friend, and then Bad Blood is backstabbing somebody.
Okay, so there's already two scenarios in that. You miss
more
your
than that.
friend.
That's on top of my head.
Okay, so what about like a misconnection? Like you lock eyes with someone or like meet them and it's like,
well, I guess that's Enchanted, right? Enchanted or Sparks Fly. There's literally
a song called Sparks Fly.
Or Mine, you were the best thing that's ever been mine, but then they, like, you know, didn't have the kind of, or they like broke up later on.
Okay. Bad Boys, like falling in love with a bad boy.
Trouble, Style, Getaway Car. Oh, that's about love triangle between Tom Hiddleston, Calvin Harris, and Taylor Swift.
So basically, there's a Taylor Swift song for everybody.
Yeah,
right. And there's a Taylor Swift song for every situation.
Yes.
And so I think that's part of her longevity is that she sings about things that are really vulnerable. So the first time I actually felt really connected to a Taylor Swift song was, I can't believe I'm saying this, was Enchanted.
Do you know who that's for?
Who's that for?
I forgot his name, but the singer of Owl City.
Oh my God.
She wrote, his name's Adam, right?
I don't know.
I think so. So she wrote the song for him, and I think they met at an event, and she wrote like, I was enchanted to meet you. He heard this. A year later, he wrote a song back for her, and it was like, I was enchanted to meet you too, Taylor. And she never responded.
Cold. That is so cold.
She had moved on. It was a little bit, I think, it was a little cringy. Like his
song?
His song was a little cringy. Even though it was the same song, but it was just, I think, I don't know. The moment was gone, right? It was years later.
Couldn't read the room. Couldn't read the room.
It took too long. Oh. Poor guy, though.
But yeah. So, I mean, like, and when I heard that song, I was like, oh my God, get out of my head. Like, stop singing about these vulnerable feelings that I have that I don't want to share with people. And here she is like, la, 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 like singing it out loud, you know? Yeah. And so that's why I think like she's been very successful and people are really drawn to her because it feels like she's singing about things that are super vulnerable that other people feel and relate to. And then on top of that, you know, a lot of people make fun of like adolescent girl feelings, right? It's like, oh, so dramatic. They're so stupid. Like I got made fun of in high school for like reading Twilight and like, I mean, people just kind of like look down on it. And then Taylor, like actually, you know, just saying what she knew, which is like being an adolescent girl and made a killing out of it. You know what I mean?
I think honestly, actually that's so smart because I feel like at a time when everybody her age and I mean younger and everybody was an adolescent teenager that was really hysterical on the inside. But you're trying to pretend to be cool. And you're like, you know, that's how everybody wants to like shy away from being the boy crazy, vulnerable adolescent. And suddenly there was a scarcity for it. And she's like, you know what? She can really just go with that, and there was nobody else doing it because everybody was like, I should shy away from that. That's gonna kill my brand. But because that's again, they're so good at this. Her whole family's so good at marketing. Do you know the whole like conspiracy about her? No. Her whole career, how it started. This is if Taylor, if you're listening to this, and I hope you are because I love you, but there's nothing I asked you. Please call me to your secret sessions. I would love to come. Anyways, this is conspiracy, not confirmed. This is just a lore that her dad he was already rich before, you know, she came from a rich background, and her first album, there's a rumor that he bought 200,000 copies of it so it would show up on the charts. So once it showed up on the charts, it got picked up, obviously, right?
Yeah.
And he also had shares, and it was a new record label. They had no other artists except Taylor Swift, and this record label and Taylor Swift came up together. So that was their first and their biggest artist, and her family was really involved in it. So the rumor has it that he made an investment, and honestly, kind of smart. So, and I wouldn't put it past them because they're really smart. Like her whole family, her mom is her manager, and her dad is like really savvy with business, and she is extremely like savvy.
Yeah. So that leads me to my next point, which is my issue with Taylor has always been that there's something that felt inauthentic about her, like calculated. And then when she had that fall from grace, like that exposure and that massive backlash, it was kind of like, oh, so there it was. This is who she really is. But to be fair, I also think it is sexist, right? That like it's always women. If you're overexposed, you know, and you're a celebrity and you're female, eventually you're gonna get this backlash, right?
Well, I think the backlash, the whole Kanye thing, that was convoluted because Kanye is Kanye as usual, like, you know, and it was highly edited, whatever. I think it was bound to happen in some way. There was going to be a Taylor Swift fall because of how overexposed she had been. Because, I mean, right before this was the whole Girls Squad era where I think when people see, like, she was with all her friends that are models and, like, having fun, and think after a while there is I don't want to say jealousy, envious or whatever, that people don't want to like root for you when you're like so unrelatable. Almost like, you're hanging out with models in a mansion. Like people are looking for a reason now to like find something. I think she would have had a fallen from grace regardless. And I think it was smart on their part that they took that opportunity to rebrand her. Honestly, I think that she became from this like, oh, this like America sweetheart that goes on every talk show and is so excited to go on every award show to like, I don't talk about my relationships, I don't go to award shows, I don't go do interviews or anything, and I'm really exclusive. And I think it shows that her demand has even increased because of it.
I mean, that's kind of like what happened with Beyonce, right? Like you don't
and Adele,
right? So Beyonce basically like dropped her self-titled album, didn't make a big fuss, no promotion, nothing, broke records, and was like, no, I'm not giving any interviews.
But it's also, I think, sad that this fall from grace mostly happens just for women.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I say it's sexist, right?
I can't think of any like male musicians that have had like, even when they have literal accusations against them, they're like, we need to separate art from the artist.
Yeah.
But women, I didn't like the way she talked. I don't know what's about her, but I just don't like her because I just have a sense that she's a bad person. What does that mean, right? Yeah, when there's evidence that a guy is a bad person, you're like, oh, but his music is so good. It's really hard not to be calculated, though. I feel like if I was a female artist and that stature, I would be calculated.
And that's the thing. I think a part of it is just, maybe it's just me, but I don't like goody two shoes. Every time there's like, a Mary Sue.
This is going for a personal level. You're like, oh, you're the one that my parents are like, why can't you be just like her? Well, I mean, have you seen her documentary? She talks about that. She's like, she talks about how they put this
Americana. Sorry.
She talked about how obsessed she had become to be America's good girl.
Yeah.
It was a catalyst for her eating disorder. It was a catalyst for a lot of things that she had to work on later on, because she was made to be terrified of like ever talking about politics, because you're gonna become like the next Dixie Chicks and no one's ever gonna listen to your music ever again. You're gonna be shunned from like, so you have to be America's sweetheart, and it's almost an obsession. So even when you're that, even when everybody likes you and you're a goody two shoe, you don't even win then,
because it's really the ultimate form of like perfectionism and people pleasing.
Yes,
and so that's like. So I think in a weird way, like you said, that fall from grace actually kind of like freed her.
Yes.
Right? Because she got to kind of reassess her values, right? Look at how she wants to do things differently.
Yeah.
And basically like move forward in a different way. And I think it's interesting that her and Joe Alwyn started dating in this time period.
Yeah.
Where she kind of was. I showed you some of those unhinged Reddit comments. Where people are like,
Nico and her Reddit. Yeah. Every episode, Nico brings up two things: Reddit and Shakira.
but sincerely, like people were like, oh, he got her when she was at her lowest. Blah 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 blah.
It's insane to me how fast people like turn on him, because people like I was never a Joe lover, but people were like obsessed with him, like, oh my god, he's like the best thing ever. I'm like, he's just a man, whatever, but it's so crazy that those are the same people that are like, oh, but like in this one song she wrote, that's just strange that she would write that about him, and he must be a terrible person. I'm like, no, she felt differently for him back then, and now it has changed. That's how relationships work. Do you think it's I don't want to say that it's a generational thing. I think a lot of people don't have as many social settings anymore, where a lot of our social mingling happens on the internet.
Yeah. See this, because I'm a therapist. People who don't believe that I'm a therapist, I am a licensed clinical social worker, okay?
We'll put it on our website when we make one, because we don't have one.
No.
What if we put it on our link tree? One of like Nico's license.
No. No. You were like, oh, I showed people at work the podcast. Did you show people at your job? I was like, no, never. No. But so I say this because I have counseled, people from a variety of generations, right? And you really do see the difference in how people relate to other people depending on like the era that they grew up in, right? So
the Eras tour.
Eras. It's unintentional. And so I do think what happens is because so much of our socializing is online, right? our sense of self is really based on like validation, likes, views. That's where our self-worth is coming from for this kind of generation. And additionally, I think our opinions, and because we are like constantly like in search of those likes and views, we adopt the most like extreme form of thinking, the most extreme like thing to say, and it just ends up being this like shouting match, or it just ends up just like not, it just all seems out of proportion. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think also before the accessibility to the internet, especially social media and celebrities on social media, people got their news about celebrities from magazines or newspapers, and it wasn't like a daily thing that you can just go on Instagram and see firsthand from the person what they're doing. And I think people have this false sense of parasocial relationship,
closeness.
They
think
they
close.
think that they know this person, they know every part of this person's life. And I wonder if that was the case maybe 20 or even 10 years ago.
Yeah. So now you really see how social media is really a tool for the branding and for, again, this curating of an image. It's not real.
Yeah. And I guess that's the price you pay. That's the unfortunateness of it, right? She is really good at at getting fans to really tap into her art and like relate to her. And in return, I think fans feel that she owes them an explanation for the things that happen in her life, when in reality she is showing us only a part of her life.
Yeah. And it's the part that she wants us to see.
Yeah. But I think people think they know her more than they know her.
And the thing is, let me tell you something, right? Okay. I've been with the same guy for like 7 years.
Ugh.
Okay.
Don't give us advice then.
I'm not giving you advice. What I'm saying is that basically you can write a song when you are in a certain like feeling state. So for example, let's pretend Omer and I get into an argument.
And that's what she does, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what she's good at. Like she's talked about it. She like writes about specific moments. That's why it feels so vulnerable, because it's like that moment that she captures that exact moment. That doesn't mean she feels that way 5 years later when she's singing them.
Yeah, or that's how that it's not a snap. It's not like a representation of the whole relationship. It's just a snapshot of a moment. And I say this to my clients all the time: thoughts and feelings are not reality. It's not reality.
Whoa.
It's true. If you go to therapy, you'll learn about this, right? So
don't give therapy advice.
I'm not giving therapy advice, but I'm just saying thoughts and feelings are not reality. And so what I'm saying is, so like if I get mad at Omer,
on this podcast told me that my thoughts and feelings are invalid and that's not reality. Cancel Nico.
But you can think in unhealthy ways. So for example, if I get into a fight with my husband, what do I do when we're arguing? Oh, you never listen. You're always like this. It's like generalizing, and it's not true. I'm just frustrated. And so probably what Taylor does, like any artist does, right, is you're angry and she goes and writes a song. She writes her feelings, uses her imagination. She feels better. And whatever that argument was is blown over. It's like no big thing. But now she's got a bop. Now she has a hit on her hands.
She's never written a bad song about Joe Alwyn, so that's why I'm confused on how these people are getting at this.
The thing is, when you're an artist, you might have certain intentions. You might be very clear about
people project.
Well, yeah, but once you put your art out there, it's not really up to you how people interpret it, right? And so it's just interesting. But I do think it's like natural that people are like speculating. Like, have you ever heard of Usher's Confessions?
No.
This was like huge in Y2K. And it was this like album.
I whenever you talk about Y2K, I feel like I go to this dream world that doesn't really exist in my head. I'm like, wow, that era before.
Well, I'm glad it's over because it sucks. But anyway, so in this album, it's called Confessions, and it's basically about the protagonist, who we'll say Usher, who cheats on his girlfriend.
Whoa.
And gets his mistress pregnant.
Whoa.
That's the album, and people were like, Usher cheated on Chili, who he was dating at the time, singer from TLC, and everyone was like, oh my god, who's the baby mama, who's the mistress, all this stuff. And finally it got so bad, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm remembering correctly, Usher didn't do that. It was one of his producers or someone he knew, and he was inspired by that situation and wrote this album, and that producer had to come out and be like, it was me, because like people just wouldn't drop it.
I mean, not poor guy, but He had to publicly shame himself.
I think so. If I'm wrong, please correct me, but that's how I remember it. That basically, like, that's what happened.
Shut up, all
And
of
so
you.
I think it's normal, it's natural,
Yeah.
right? Like that people speculate that, but Taylor too, she does put Easter eggs. That's how I think she really kind of stood out.
I don't think she wants to stop doing the Easter eggs, and I don't. I think she handled the way this breakup news was handled was very strategic, and it actually worked because the timing of it, right? Her concert's going to continue her tour this coming weekend, and it happened this weekend. She also did a pap walk, and she also was like gave us snippets of her music video. So there's so much news about her. I think it's going to get buried within literally 2 days. And I think she's gotten really good at this whole thing about how to. I think maybe when she was like 19 to 23, she wasn't really in control of the narrative about her. But I think in a weird way, I think she's in control.
I think she's in control too.
I personally, this is a conspiracy on my part. No one has confirmed it. No one has given me this for this, just from my thoughts and thoughts only.
Which I've told you is not reality. Which I've made very clear it's not reality.
I think, honestly, like some of the songs on the album, I think they were already broken up by that point, because her last song in the album is called Dear Reader, and she's like, don't take love advice for someone who's falling apart. And if you knew who I was and who was talking to you, you wouldn't believe me, because and she talks about how she has a house, not a home, and she goes alone there because nobody's there.
That's sad.
Yeah. Whenever people ask her about her music, they're like, she's like, it's about different experiences in my life. But to me, the fact that was the last song in the album, to me, I'm like, this was probably written when the breakup happened. This Dear Reader was.
So you think they broke up? Because Peoples is saying that they broke up a few weeks ago.
I don't think that's true. Personally, I don't think that's true. I think the album was already done. I don't think they broke up before the album. I think that last song was probably recorded like after the breakup. So that's my personal interpretation of the song. So
well, I'm glad you said what it was. It's a conspiracy theory.
It is a conspiracy theory.
It is your
on
personal
I
interpretation.
have so many conspiracy theories about Taylor Swift, so that I get death threats over on TikTok all the time. So
do you want to hash those out here? Because I'd rather not get death threats. I'd rather get death threats because of something I said, not because of something you said.
I think like if you're on my TikTok, you already know, but
I already know which one it is. Keep it out of here. I don't want that mess in here. Okay?
Okay. I won't do that. All right. Closing us out. What was your all-time favorite pop culture breakup moment?
I think you know which one I'm gonna say.
Oh my god! Do you have another one, or is
Shakira, Ipike.
Do you have another one, or is it this?
No, it's this one. It's this
Why
one.
do you like that one so much? Is it because she put the witch doll in front of the mother-in-law's house?
Like okay. Because it's great. It's juicy. One, it first starts off as like, oh man, I'm so bummed. Then he's like dating a girl like 10 years younger
like
than
19
him.
years old.
She's not 19, she's like 23. But then you're like, ugh. And then there's the strawberry jam. That was the smoking gun. She was wearing Shakira's clothes. Then the mom helped hide the affair, and Shakira threw her hands on her. Like, they got into a fight, a physical altercation, according to tabloids.
And then she was like, "You're the reason I had charges for tax fraud. Even though I pay all of I paid for all of the houses."
I mean, so basically, it's just juicy, and I feel so bad for Shakira. But you know what? This is Shakira turning, lemons into lemonade, okay? And I can't wait for the new album. I really cannot. This is going to be the best album ever, because if that music sessions is anything to go by, oh my God, we got like another lemonade on our hands. We got the best breakup album ever.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you my favorite breakup moment. So, obviously, we already talked about John Mayer and Taylor Swift dated, right? Mm-hmm. And he was 32, gross, and she was 19, air quote. Like, when they start touring together when she was 17. But let's just say she was 19 when they broke up. And she wrote the song Dear John, and he went reports and called her songwriting cheap. And this man was talking just a few months ago about how she's a prodigy of her time and saying her songwriting is cheap and she should not write like this, blah, 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 right? Somebody asked Taylor Swift, they're like, hey, John Mayer said this about you. that you wrote Dear John about him. It was cheap songwriting. And she's like, oh, how presumptuous. How did he even come to the conclusion that that song would be about him? It's about a Dear John letter. And then in her Red Tour, after this, it was during this whole time when he wrote the song 22 about her being fake and all this. She got Carly Simon, the woman that sang You're So Vain, You Think the Song Is About You. They both got on stage and they sang that together.
Gosh.
It was so funny.
That's
like...
great. Carly Simon has some great Gen Z, listen to Carly Simon. She's got some great songs.
It was hilarious. I was like, how to like...
Wait, was that Carly Simon? Mm-hmm. You're So Vain? Mm-hmm. I'm going to fact check this because I just want to make sure.
Fact checked.
Carly Simon. Yep. You know your stuff. You know your stuff.
I do. What can I say?
I'm so proud. Well, thank you for listening for this episode of Amateur Popcast. We really appreciate y'all's support and listening. Please go ahead and give us 5 stars. I think we deserve it, but if you don't think so, fine. But give us 5 stars. And then if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, go ahead and send us an email at amateurpopcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at amateur_popcast. Thank you.